Hey Jay,
Why, hello, Natalie.
how are you doing today?
Pretty good. Just hanging out here on
You know,
Zoom.
you know what? It would be great to do a podcast today.
Really? You think?
Yeah, let's do it. You
Let's
know what?
do it.
And and I have the perfect guest for us
Oh my God.
today.
I'm so glad somebody showed up.
Kathy is here
Oh, really?
to speak with us today about
Uh-huh.
her caregiver experience. And oh my gosh, does she have a story to
She
tell?
does. She
I
does.
think you know Kathy. I think you could tell us a little bit about her.
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
So I'm going to start first of all and say this. This is very important. Kathy and I have spoken just a little bit while you were out.
Mhm.
And I need for you to know that Kathy is the oldest of four children.
What?
And yeah, she says, and this is her absolute quote, which seems to come with an automatic caregiver role. And that's called the babysitter, Kathy. So, as the oldest, I would say that you were a caregiver since like you were five, like
Yep.
just keeping people alive. So, Kathy and her husband have been married for 42 years. They have a daughter and two adorable grandchildren. I love how that's put together there. Your father, Kathy's father, passed away in 98, and she helped her mom through downsizing. And we both know how that works.
Mm.
They went from a larger house, her mom did, to a smaller townhouse, which she really liked. But 8 years later, Kathy's mom, they noticed that she was having some memory problems, getting lost driving, forgetting to pay bills, things like that. And that is, I feel like, Kathy, when I read, that's kind of where the story began. You became a long distance caregiver because she was a distance off. You moved closer, you retired from your business. Then you wanted to move closer to your daughter and
Jay,
your
you're giving it
grandchild.
all
Hold on.
away.
And then her mom went in assisted living, and then you moved her in your house. So that's it. That's like everybody, that's your teaser. So Kathy.
Kathy, welcome to the show.
Yes.
Thank
So
you. I'm delighted to be here. I
thank
just
you.
love your show. I am
Oh,
honored
thank
to be a
you.
guest on it.
Yay! We're so
Another
excited to have
sister.
you.
Another sister. We're good.
Honestly, she is another sister. So I met Kathy some time ago,
Mhm.
and we have stayed connected over the last 6 months. And whoa, gosh, Kathy, you have quite the story that I would love for you to kind of start from the kind of the beginning, like talk about a little bit about like you started in care, like when you were
Right.
younger. You're the oldest, so clearly you and JJ align. It's
Right,
okay. I'm the
right.
middle.
Thank you, Kathy.
But
Absolutely.
yeah, so tell me a little bit about it, especially like the dynamics with your mom and your dad and your siblings, all that kind of stuff growing up.
That's, I think, many people would relate. Like, you tend to be drawn usually to more one parent more than the other.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I don't know how my father did it. He was one of 11 children. My mom was one of 13.
Wow.
And they both grew up very poor. My father never even finished eighth grade. He had to go get they lived on a farm. So he did the whole milking cows and things like that to help with the family.
Yeah.
But for some reason, my dad had a way about him. And all four of us children literally argued after his funeral that we all sincerely thought we were his favorite. And
Wow.
how a man who never finished eighth grade made each child out of a busy life feel so special. And the problem with my mom was because my dad was the fun guy, she was the disciplinarian.
Oh.
She's the one that made sure we had clean clothes, the things you don't appreciate as a child.
Right.
We didn't have a lot of money, but we certainly weren't, I wouldn't classify us as, in the poor category. We were middle class, lower middle class, but we always had dinner on the table and clean clothes. It was a traditional, growing up in the 50s, 60s, 70s, the mom stayed home. My dad worked. And basically, I resented my mom because I was always the one that had to help cook, help clean, help do laundry. And it was like my two brothers were in the middle. And then my sister came along, almost 10 years younger. I was so happy to have a sister. After that, literally, she saved my life. In fact, my mom we didn't realize she suffered, probably with all four of us, postpartum depression. And after my sister, it was taking over her life. Nobody would treat us. then. It was
Wow.
a very hard thing. And I think to the end of her life, it contributed. I don't think she was ever treated. So the sad part was at 9 years old, 9.5 years old, my sister's crib was in my bedroom, and I'm the one that got up with her and fed her and took care of her because my mother was unable to.
Yeah.
And so that was a lot of responsibility that I didn't even question. It was just, I was literally so thrilled to have a sister. She was my baby doll, you know, and it was not a hardship at the time. My mother did what she could. I mean, she made the bottles, she cooked the meals, but I kind of took over that role as caregiver to my sister. So we've always been very close.
So do you think,
but it started at a young age.
So I apologize for interrupting. I'm like an interrupting cow over here. I'm like mooing all over the place. So do you think, so your mom leaned into the tangible items, like I cooked, transactional almost. I cooked, I
where
cleaned,
she could control,
right.
Yes.
And then you, it sounds like, provided the emotional support to the your younger siblings probably. And I know that your dad was very emotionally connected. It sounds like your mom was a little bit more detached emotionally.
Yes. And I think had she, you know, if they were allowed to talk more about things, I remember she told me one time she tried to bring it up to her doctor, and he basically said, get over it. You got 4 beautiful, healthy children. What are you complaining about? So I do think that can contribute to dementia and other emotional problems later in life. I truly do.
And I think as women, go ahead.
It's a traumatic experience.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I'm sure she felt guilty that I had to do so much when she felt it was her responsibility.
Well, and not having the capacity. And, you know, if you think about it, we're not even here to talk about postpartum, but I mean, if you think about how postpartum was not treated for so long.
Exactly.
And we know, and I'm sure there's a lot of listeners who may know someone who understands, who's had postpartum, and the people who say, I'm like, I can't get out of bed. I can't.
Right.
And so doesn't that all, that's all like that all kind of makes more sense if you really kind of think about it. And as a 9.5-year-old, you don't understand postpartum. You just think.
No.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, I still had school and homework. I was in 5th grade. It wasn't like I was an adult.
Yeah.
It was, but I never resented it. It's funny. Yeah. I just never did. It was just part of, I kind of enjoyed it.
Well, I like how you said she was a baby doll. My mom kind of had, my aunts had that relationship with my mom because she was later in life. So she was like a toy. So
that is true.
She was a gift.
Aunt June, Jane's twin, our favorite Jane, and not that we don't all have favorites. You're all our favorites. But June was, you know, leaned into mom like she was her, you know,
it was little doll. Yeah.
Little doll. So you grew up, so you're aging, you get older, you leave the house, you're going to college. I know that you had met your husband and all that kind of jazz. And then kind of forward up to when you started to be like, okay, because this is when kind of the caregiving journey, and your caregiving journey with your mom spans, I think we talked about it, almost 17 years, right?
Yeah, a little over actually, because we did things, as you mentioned, the whole downsizing thing. Right. He passed in 1998, and my mom was in the original old Cape Cod in Buffalo, leaky roof, you know, the rattly windows, 4-bedroom home that, you know, we had all grown up in, and it didn't even have a garage. And I remember her literally climbing out of the 2nd story window onto what was the family room to shovel snow off because it would melt against the house and leak into the family room.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. After my dad died, my mom was getting, and finally one time, I think she probably almost rolled off because I was, Mom, we've got to get you out of this house. Oh no, I know wherever, you know, but that experience, she literally called me and said, I think you're right. I think I need to move.
So Kathy,
So
let me
my
ask.
husband and I found it was not even finished, the construction, a beautiful townhouse for her. And she got to pick out the floors and the cab, everything.
Wow.
So
It was wonderful.
Was the decision, let me ask you this, because I want to ask about sibling dynamics, because there's 3 of us and we make group decisions with our mom, and JJ's always the oldest. So as you guys are going, are you staying in that traditional oldest role and you're having the most communication? Did you and your siblings talk about like, hey, we're worried about mom, we think she needs to go somewhere else? Or did they just naturally, like Emily and I, just line up with Jay typically? We're like, that sounds great, Jay.
No, that's a very good question. I was the closest one. My mom was in Buffalo. I was in Erie, Pennsylvania, so about 100 miles away. My sister was in Virginia, my brother was in Delaware, and my other brother has been in Naples, Florida since he got out of college.
Right.
So the younger of the 2 brothers was also the closest to my mom besides me. And he is the one that was in Delaware, and he did not want my mom to move. He had her entire basement filled with all of his, I mean, from kids, G.I. Joes, all sporting equipment. He used my mom, and he had all of his friends still in Buffalo. So he came frequently and used my mom as his, launch pad or landing pad. And he had kayaks, bikes, everything was there. He did not want her to move because it was inconvenient for him.
She was storage. That is fantastic.
Well, it is free because storage is expensive.
Yeah.
So basically I overran him as the oldest, and we found this townhouse. He really couldn't say anything because it was perfect for her. It was absolutely perfect. It was brand new. It had a warranty, and it was a ranch. It had a 1-car garage. Fantastic. And it just had one other person who was also a widow. Her husband happened to have been my science teacher in high school, but she was now a widow. So it was a duplex style. The 2 garages in the middle and 2 brick townhouses, ranch. It was perfect on a cul-de-sac, all widows. It was just worked out. They were all widows. A block from the senior center. He could not, and a full basement. So all he did was literally transfer all of his stuff over, and then he was happy. But my other sister and brother fully supported it because, of course, it made everything much easier for her. So it was a great move, and we got rid of everything. I mean, she had 45 years worth of junk in that house. And we moved her into a new house, and we got her new furniture. I mean, we did move her bed, but her bedroom furniture. But it was like she was thrilled. Everything was new, bright, easy. You know how they make for seniors, easy to care for. So she was very happy with the move. I know some people object, but she was very willing and happy to move.
That's awesome. So she's there. You guys didn't notice her symptoms for almost 8 years, but I know you're closer. So did she have any needs during those 8 years between the time your dad passed and when you really started noticing the dementia?
Yeah, well, it actually worked out really well because we moved her the year after my dad passed, and she was able, there was a friend of my brother's, he and his wife lived in the neighborhood close to my mom, and her friend was a school teacher who needed a caregiver in the morning to get a newborn baby watched and her 6-year-old son off on the school bus. So my mom drove there every morning. It was just a couple blocks away. And I think she was fine until they no longer needed her. And that's when we started noticing. See, after she didn't have that responsibility, that getting up, taking care of this child every morning. And I think she was there till probably noon or 1 o'clock or something like that, until the baby was now in school, and then whatever arrangements. So for about 7 or 8 years, she had this wonderful job that gave her cash under the table, a place to go. They gave her a leftover food, it was, and I think that kept her. She may have had little incidents, you had, as you're in your 70s, you get memory issues.
Right.
But she still did her own shopping, her laundry, her house was in nice order. And my husband and I were going up every month anyway. He cut her lawn, and we took care of that did the things like
So
that.
you
She
guys
had
are,
purpose. Yeah.
yeah,
She had
and-
purpose.
Yeah, I kept an eye on her.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And called her often. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's funny because you're like, that sounds similar to us. Like you're checking in and you're making
Yeah.
sure. So you don't feel like
Exactly.
a caregiver at that point. This is why caregivers don't identify as caregivers, because
That's right.
we're just like, oh, we're just doing what we normally would do as children or daughters, adult children. And we're checking in on mom, making sure. So then you get to this point where you're like, I'm going to have to step in again, because you stepped in once with, we're going to sell the house. Like,
Right.
and then she was like, I'm on. And she saw the positive of that. And then you had to step in again. So then
Yes.
what happened?
I started going every month and then twice a month. We would go up for the weekend,
Mhm.
and I did the things that were getting more difficult just because of her age. You know, we would like do clean carpets and do like more heavy duty wash windows, change out her storm door, to the screen door, things that she would probably have attempted, but to make it easier. And I was keeping an eye on her checking account just to make sure. And keeping an eye out. She, at that point in 2005, we didn't have any, my dad had died of a heart attack. So sudden, unexpected, no plans. It threw us all. I didn't even go into that, but all four of us had our own opinions, the kids. And that was not a good situation. So in 2005, I talked to my sister who was in Virginia, and I said, I think we need to get mom, some pre-planning arrangements. I think, what happened with dad, and I told my brothers, and they kind of just said, yeah, if you can do that, you probably should. And I mean, it was hard. I'd say to my mom, like, Mom, you know how hard it was when dad passed. We didn't know what he wanted. We ended up burying him by his parents because we didn't have any other arrangements. I said, and their marriage hadn't been great. I said, do you have any preference? Like, do you want to be buried? Or she said, oh, I don't care, whatever you kids want.
Whatever the kids want.
And so literally, to make it easy, I just said, so Mom, is it okay if we put you by Dad? And she said, oh yeah. And I thought, oh, poor Dad, but here we go. I mean, I just,
okay, Dad.
And
that's how we feel about our dad too.
So anyway, I did get her to a woman elder care attorney. She was very kind. I had pre-explained that my mom we needed something. There's 4 children. She had a paid-for home. But it was basically getting my dad's Social Security, and that was what she was living on. But we wanted things. And she was very good about that. She made me the power of attorney. I think we made my sister executrix so that I didn't have it all on me. And I was also her medical directive. So my mother was always cooperative if we just gave her a heads up and said, is this okay?
Yeah.
Just kind of pre-approval. And then she was fine, because I tried to let her know that this was up to her, but it would make it easier for us.
Yeah.
And saying it that way to her got quite a bit of agreement. It would go a long way.
Yeah.
So
that's how we handled it.
Just going ahead and addressing it, which is so hard for all of us. That's something you guys got a grasp on. And that's hard for all of us. Financials and things like that. Yeah, it is
it's
hard.
very
it is
difficult.
Hard.
And,
So
not every mother is willing to say, like, if it's easier for us, a lot of them would just say, I don't care, I won't be here, but when I put it that way, it was, all I wanted from her was okay. And I got that every time. So I learned how to ask.
So during that time, we're going to get into the nitty gritty here. You've got a spouse, you've got a child, a daughter.
My daughter was married by this time.
Yeah. And you at some point have got, grandbabies coming.
I think she has a career too.
Yeah. She also has a career. Yeah. So where are we with you, and what are you doing? Because we've talked about your mom. We know, we're moving through these phases. What's going on with you, Kathy?
In the 2000s, I was still a realtor working in Pennsylvania. I loved my career. My husband and I had, in our marriage, have built 9 new homes. So real estate has always been on our radar.
Yeah.
And I gave up a medical career because of, after 20 some years, it is a burnout job. I'll just end it with that. And I loved the real estate. We did investment properties. We did flips. We did, oh my God, I had so much fun with it. I worked with new construction. and I had a very loyal, very wonderful client base. So it was a lot of fun. It was new adventures all the time. That's when the market was before 2008, before the crash. And so it was very easy for me to take weekends off, 1 or 2 weekends a month. You just, as long as you stay informed, and stay in touch with your customers and explain the situation. I've got to go take care of my mom. They were all wonderful about it. If I needed an open house, my friend would, we worked it all out. So I had the best of both worlds. It was literally no problem for me to drive 100 miles, a couple weekends a month, look at mom, buy her groceries, make sure her house was in order, take her out, get her shopping, get her,
right.
And so it was not I feel sorry because people don't have it set up ideal like I did. My daughter was married. She got married in 2005. And so my husband would come with me. So after he'd cut the lawn, my mom would take us to Tim Hortons and buy him a coffee or a donut. We kept it fun. And she enjoyed the company. She was, basically alone, and she enjoyed the company. So it was those few years were good. But I did start worrying. I noticed she wasn't doing her laundry. She would put it in buckets to soak, but with no soap. There was odors. There was things that I was helping her wash her hair every week. And I think that was the only time. It was probably because of getting arthritis and things. It was difficult. So you notice the hygiene, you notice the less getting done around the house, the crumbs on the floor, the fingerprints on the microwave, things that were not there before.
Hey, ladies, I need to interrupt for just a second to share about the Sisterhood membership. It's basically a sale every day. And the best part, it's free. Here's the details. We're partnering with our friends at Benefit Hub and other care partners to save you money. With over 200,000 participating companies across the US and abroad, you'll find discounts at your favorite local stores, huge savings on vacations, amazing deals on home, auto, and supplemental insurances, and everything in between. Go to confessionsofareluctantcaregiver.com to sign up, and then definitely tell your friends about it. They can join too. Trust me, there's a discount for everyone. And don't forget, it's free. Okay, back to confessing.
Yeah. Right.
So when did you guys make the move?
We moved to close to my mom in 2010. By that time, I was needing to be there almost full time. And that I had to retire from my real estate business because there was no way I was going to go to New York, take all the classes. It was another state.
Right. Yeah.
Try to build a new business while being basically I was not a full-time caregiver. What worked out is we moved to a town near my mother. So I just went every day because I wanted her to be in her own home as long as she could, because she still could sweep the floors and vacuum. She needed to be busy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, she would have probably just sat there all day long.
Yeah.
I think, and it's interesting, Kathy, our grandmother worked my grandparents owned a hardware for 50 years. And she worked up until, I think, Jay, it was 6 months before she passed. And she always said that the activities, it was the acts of working, because she passed of cancer. And that those activities is what kept her alive. Because she was like, well, if I retired, what would I do?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And my dad was gone.
Purpose.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
And, at 4 children, a husband, all of her life had been devoted to basically giving and taking care of other people. And even when she was fortunate to take care of this child, the babysitting job, once that was taken from her, it was like she was lost. Everything she had ever known and done her whole life, there was nothing left to do that. And I believe that's when the much more rapid decline.
So something happens in your life though. So you've moved closer, and we know that, but then you have this desire, I think, because your daughter and grandchild, her husband, they're in Virginia. So So what's going on there? Because
Well,
at some
actually,
point
at that time they were living. They were teaching in D.C. at Catholic University. They both got their PhDs at Catholic University. They were both teachers, college professors, and so they were teaching there, living in Silver Spring, the Beltway, the commute, closer to my sister in Fairfax. So we would visit, but there was no way, we would visit, but it wasn't. But then they hated that lifestyle. And my son-in-law got the job in Roanoke, Virginia. And my daughter, and about a year after they moved, I got the call. Here they married 10 years, mind you. Wow. You're going to be a grandma. And I literally hung up the phone and called my husband and said, we're moving. And no explanation, no anything, that. No logistics, like, what are we going to do with mom? You've got a job.
Forget it. I don't even care if you're coming to your husband.
I've been waiting 10 years for a grandbaby. I am not missing out on this. Yeah, that's another story for another time. But we did move, and we did bring mom down.
But I love that, because you said, okay, I'm a caregiver. I've given up my career. I've done all this, but hold on. I got to have my life. And I love that about the story.
2015 when this happened. So for 5 years, we were just rolling along. I'm going every day, taking care of mom more and more, doing her laundry, cooking her meals, everything. Yeah. So, but in her home.
Yeah.
So you say, okay, so I just want to pause for a sec. So
sure.
Your daughter says you're going to be a grandma. You're like on it. Don't care if anybody's coming with me, but you can. But when you talk to your siblings about this, we're moving to Roanoke. Mom is currently here. Is anyone going to come here, or are you going to bring her to you? Or are you at this point pushed again because they're looking at you saying, take her with you?
Very insightful. The same brother who now loves the new house is like, you can't take her. Okay. I said, why not? She'll be fine here. Julie, his friend, the nurse, wife of his friend, the attorney, is a nurse. Oh, she can look in on mom, check in on her. She's the mother of 4 girls in college. They're in college. She is an operating nurse, room nurse at Children's Hospital, full-time in Buffalo, and teaches yoga classes. But yeah, she's going to come every day and take care of my mom, because again, my brother is just like my mom. And it's funny because she never liked change. And she's the one going along with all of this. She didn't want to be left behind. No. She wanted to come with a grandbaby. Oh my, I'm there.
It's got something to do. I think
I was with her every day. I took care of her. We were best friends by now. Okay. Yeah. The mother I never had became my child.
Yeah. And that's important to know.
But my brother did not want to get on board. We had to sign because all 4 of us owned the home jointly after we made this. I set it all up so all 4 would be treated equally.
Yeah.
Even though I was doing all the caregiving, my husband and I were spending all of our money driving up and down, doing all the work, buying her groceries. I took care of everything. We never asked for a penny from anybody. We're the ones that got her the townhome. So she went from an $80,000 home, which we had sold it for. When we sold her townhome, and being a realtor, I sold it myself for $180,000. There was quite a nice profit there because there was no mortgage.
Right.
And I had made that when we went to the attorney in trust for all 4 children. I wasn't getting a penny more than anybody else.
Yeah.
And my brother, we needed all 4 signatures and he wouldn't sign.
Do you regret doing that?
No, I don't
4
at all.
signatures?
And I'll tell you, yes, at the time I thought I was being fair. Okay. Yeah. And my sister was the one who, to her credit, said, Kathy, I think that's unfair to you and Mark. You guys are doing my husband.
Yeah.
Doing all the work. And I said, what I don't want is if something suddenly happens to mom, like it did to dad, I don't want fighting. I'm not going to be carrying receipts with me of what I spent versus what it was not worth it to me. It wasn't about the money. I volunteered to do this. Nobody else could. They were all living out of town. Nobody else said, I'll give up my job so that I can go take care of it was a voluntary thing. I volunteered for it. I didn't think that made me any better than anybody else. They couldn't. they were not in a position to. They had family, children, whatever. They couldn't.
Yeah.
So it just seemed like the right thing to do at the time.
Mhm.
So eventually my mom told my brother, she said, well, I want to go with her. And so he did eventually agree, especially when I sold it myself. There was no realtor involved. He saw the money he was going to get. I hate to say it, but he was more concerned that he, you know.
But that's the reality.
But the thing that we had set up is all 4 children, all the money went into a trust for my mother's care until she passed.
Yeah.
So it was going to go to all of us eventually. But see, had I not had the realtor, or I'm sorry, the attorney involved in 2005, while she was still of sound enough mind,
Right.
none of this, it could have been I coerced her, anything.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's really smart,
So
Kathy.
you really
That's a good takeaway.
that you must have legal or financial advice. You can't do it alone, especially when there's more than one child involved.
Wow.
That's
really
you know
important.
what? That's really sage
Really
advice.
important.
Yeah.
So okay, so I want to push forward because there's still so much good juiciness. And so you moved down to Virginia and mom in tow minus the kayaks.
No. Important part was when we were moving to Virginia, my brother, also named Mark, who was in Florida, never said a word, says, Mom can come and live with me while you get settled. Because we didn't even have a home. Literally, we had sold our home.
Right.
And it was like within a 3-month period, my daughter calls in December and we, or whatever, the baby's born in December and we were moving down in February in the middle of winter in a blizzard. And I didn't have a home yet. I had flown down a couple times, worked with a realtor. So my brother says, well, it's winter. She can come down to Naples, Florida and stay with me. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that worked out for about 2 weeks. And because of my mom being in a strange place, she was moving pictures. She didn't know where she was. My brother's wife, it was his second wife, and they had only been married less than a year.
Right.
The third wife, maybe, whatever. And she said, I can't have your mom here. I come home, everything is different. She hides all my kids' pictures, you know. And so my brother took her and stuck her in a home, in a nursing home in Florida. Didn't ask anybody, just put her in.
Wow.
We later found out he also took all of her money. So I'm not even going to get into that. So anyway, that was what the situation. So my husband and I moved to Virginia. My mother is in Florida. So my sister and I are trying to go visit her several times a year to check on her. I'm a basket case because I knew my brother wasn't. He's an alcoholic, and I knew he wasn't checking in on her. And
family dynamics.
Yes. So the brother that was against all of the moves went down, literally kidnapped my mother, flew her up on a plane, never told my brother, and brought her to my house on my doorstep.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Kayak brother. Hoarder brother.
Oh my gosh, Kathy.
Okay, so he brings her. Did he tell you he was going to basically kidnap?
When he was on the plane, he goes, "I got Mom. I had to sneak her out."
Holy crap!
Yeah.
And this is like throw Mama from the train.
Virginia.
But this is like throw Mama from the train, but I'm bringing Mama on the plane.
I have got like chills on me because I'm thinking if somebody
that's given me all the trouble all these years, and now he's decided, oh, I was doing a good job.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I only have, I'm looking, I'm like, okay, so Mom comes. Now, does Mom move in with you? Because I know that your mom, so she moves in with you at this time.
Just for a short time, because I had her evaluated. And my sister came, we visited like 3 assisted care facilities, and we found one that catered to seniors that it wasn't a lockdown. It was just assisted care, but they had all kinds of like games and puzzles and activities, exercises. Engagement. And because I was full-time babysitting a 3-month-old newborn, we said, well, we'll try it. So for a couple of years, my mom, it was great. I would pack the stroller, my grandson, pick up Mom. We'd go to the mall, and she'd push, for stability, she would push the stroller and we would mall walk. This was before COVID. Mm-hmm. So keeping her active, visited her every day, brought her home, gave her lunch. So she was with us every day. but she didn't live with me for about 2.5 years until things got bad.
Okay.
And then you decided to bring her home.
I did. I had to.
Yeah.
And
she
how
had
old
fallen
was she
several
at that
times
point?
and had broken ribs and broken back, and she was being they couldn't give her the care she needed.
Yeah. I understand.
So how old was she at that point?
90.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think, so you brought your mom home, and I think this is important because we've talked about this personally. Kathy and I have talked about this at Starbucks. Thank you, Starbucks on Hirschberger. You can sponsor us. But we've talked about this, about your relationship with your mom originally. Like, it wasn't there. It was not close. It was not until you started becoming a caregiver for her.
Right.
And that your mom was not exactly the kindest person. And what stood out to me is that, especially I think when you brought her into your home, but throughout the entire time, you mentioned that she was very kind to you.
Yes.
And so never a cross word, everything was thank you. And I don't think a lot of, and we talked about this, like a lot of caregivers don't get thank yous.
No, not at all.
And so I don't know. So I think that's important. And, how did your relationship change during this time, even up until your mom passed? Like, how did that relationship change?
Well, full disclosure, as I shared with you, Natalie, way back, probably when I was either in college or high school, my dad had said to me at one time, I'm the oldest, but he said to me, if anything happens to me, please take care of your mother. And of course, my father was my hero. Oh, sure, no problem. It was a promise given in a spur of the moment.
Yep.
Of course I will.
Absolutely.
No thought. You're in college, but it came back to haunt me because when I saw my mom struggling, it was easy for me to go visit, go for a couple of days, but go back home.
That's right.
And kind of forget.
Yeah.
And it weighed on me. And I started stepping it up. And to be honest, it was out of a sense of duty, not because I had any great love or compassion for my mother. It was sort of like, well, I said I was going to do it. Nobody else can do it. It's now, what am I going to do? And as I shared with you, Natalie, it was, okay, God, I need you. I am not a caregiver. It's not in me. I've never been one. I don't like it. I don't even cook. Okay. This was not me.
You said your daughter was potty trained by 9?
By 9 months old, because I hated diapers. Oh yeah. And the funny thing is, it never became difficult. God just somehow he knew me, and he also knew, because I had wanted 7 kids. I saw Sound of Music when I was young, and and he gave me 1. Okay, so God knows, he knows me, and he knew this wasn't my role. Somehow, this relationship that I never had, this resentment I had from my mom, that I was always having to do all these things, and my friends are playing and I'm like doing laundry, things like that. Yeah. It never bubbled up. It never. And my mother, I remember running to her house when we were living near her. At the time, I had been gardening. My hair, I had no makeup on. My hair was in a ponytail. I get to her house. I look in the mirror. I have like mud. And she had said to me when I got there, oh, you look so nice. And I'm like, she had turned into this sweet, grateful woman who any attention I gave her, she was so happy with. And talk about guilt. I mean, but in the end, all I can say is God just blessed it. He blessed our relationship. She became we had a relationship for the first time in our entire lives. It was a role reversal, but he had geared me for that. I was ready. I was the caregiver now. Yeah. And she never, even at the end when she needed full, we had hospice help, but I literally had to she couldn't get out of bed. So I was doing everything, full hygiene, everything. She always tried to help. She tried to be cooperative. She would apologize. I said, Mom, it's fine. And it was. I couldn't have done this on my own. This was a gift from God, because this was not me. Yeah. And yet I never lost patience with her. I was never upset. It was a miracle. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. And so he took my cold, ungrateful heart and he turned it around. I mean, I did it out of a sense of duty, and he turned it around and blessed us both. Wow. And that's all I can say. I could not have done it. I could not have done it on my own. There's no way.
Kathy, I think that's so important. I know I see JJ's got some tears. She's about to be a snot sandwich, Kathy.
Sorry. It hits home, Kathy. So the whole topic of guilt and obligation, that's hard. And it's harder when I think you're the oldest as well. And, but that feeling of obligation that I just want to make sure, but I always want to make sure that I please my dad. That's a big thing. So,
yes. And I don't know. All I could think is I'm watching a newborn baby. I have my mother. He was getting older. I had a wheelchair in a house that wasn't really designed for it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, getting her into the bathroom, there was a lot. And I don't know how it happened, because this is not me. I was never a nurse. I was never a cook. I mean, I'm a realtor. I like showing houses, getting dressed, wearing heels. I mean, this was not me.
It's not your bucket list. It did.
It worked.
It did. So you have like this amazing sweet spirit that I see now. And I know that your mom passed last year. So tell me, because I'm learning from you now, I'm like listening to you and I'm like, oh Lord, I need to get where Kathy is. But tell me where you are now. Like I hear all the lessons, I hear the peace and everything that happened, but where are you now after this time?
My mother passed a year ago in April. At our home. It was, it was peaceful. I knew the last week. I knew because, there's physical signs that this is the end. Yeah. And I did everything they tell you to do. I still talked to her. I said, Mom, it's fine. You're fine. I love you. It was nice. The very last thing, she passed on Good Friday. The very last thing she had said to me was on the Monday before. And she looked at me, and I know she recognized me. She was almost nonverbal then. And she just kind of tried to touch my cheek. And she said, "You're such a nice girl." That's the last thing my mother said to me. And that week it was very hard. And now a year back, all I can say is all the work, all the struggles, I don't remember them. I just miss my mother every day.
I'm going to cry. Like, oh my God, because you're right. It's 17 years a caregiver.
Yeah.
And I just
never asked for any, but never wanted any of it.
Yeah. Nobody plans for it.
As the oldest, volunteering again,
Yeah.
Don't volunteer, ladies. Don't volunteer for anything. It gets you in all kinds of trouble.
This is like, gosh, Jay, Kathy is such a blessing.
I know.
Like, what a blessing. I'm just kind of like,
you get these people in the morning and they get me all upset and I have to go do my makeup again.
I mean, you're going to have to do makeup again.
I know.
So here's the thing. JJ said, you do that. How's your relationship with your siblings? After your mother has passed,
I will tell you, my sister has paid me back 100-fold for the care I gave her when she was young. She would come at least every 2 or 3 months she has a full-time, she works with the government. She's an independent consultant, but she has huge, the Department of Defense and the NIH, these are her clients. She would come at least one weekend every 2 to 3 months, bring me a spa pass day, send me out, have meals delivered if my husband wanted to do something with me or on his own. And she sat with my mom and she took care of her. And she is less than a caregiver than I am. Never had children.
Oh, I can relate to that.
As an executive, a high-end executive. And she came faithfully, and she took over all the expenses of the little bit of money. My mom still got her Social Security. She managed everything.
Yeah.
Took care of all the pre-arrangements when we knew things were coming.
Right.
She did all the legal work, all of the financial work, the banking, the paying the Medicare, everything, and came and supported me. Now, my brother, the younger one, he came probably every 6 months. He would stay. He would take her to my mother to the bathroom. He did what he could.
Right.
And he also would call and say, "Is there anything I can do to help?" So he has 3 children. He was in a little different situation, but he would come and be supportive, or he would call. My brother in Florida came one time, while my mother was in assisted care here. And then after that, we never saw him. And the week that my mother passed, I was in tears. I called my sister. I said, "Mom's doesn't have long. Please call Mark. Please tell him he's more than, I hold no hard feelings. He can come. He can sit with Mom. He can visit her.
Right.
She's not going to last much longer." We never heard from him. He never called. He never showed up. And after my mom passed, my brother let him know, and we never heard from him. I've still not heard from him.
And I think everybody.
He took the money, and that was it. I don't know if it's guilt or what.
Exactly. And so everybody will have their own thing. And so I think, I know as we're kind of wrapping up now, because we got to do sister questions, but I think the focus and what I hear from you is you took your journey and you took it and you found the silver lining. And
exactly.
And I think that's the important thing. And there's some little nuggets of wisdom that you have shared the whole way through. But JJ, it is time for sister questions. And I want to push over because I want to make sure we don't run out of time.
Yes.
So JJ, what is your question? Because I always know mine.
Oh, she always gets the last one. If there was one thing that you could say to your mom, what would it be?
I think I would say that, Mom, you taught me more than you will ever know. Because she always felt like she had no confidence and she didn't know. She didn't do anything well. But I wanted her to know that she did.
She did you, Kathy. So she did very well.
Sounds like to me like she did good.
She did.
She did good.
Yeah.
Kathy, now here's a lighthearted question because we always end it this way. What is your favorite guilty pleasure?
Oh gosh, that is a really good one. I have to blame my sister for this one. It is a spa weekend with my sister with a lot of wine involved. Yeah.
That sounds like a perfect weekend to me, Natalie.
I'm not gonna lie to
you. You can't do this all in a day. This is a full-blown weekend excursion, and wherever spa we're at stays there. It's the rule, and we have a ball. And I thank her for her support, and she thanks me, and we have a wonderful relationship. So.
That is so important. And I'm assuming that you and your siblings, I mean, you and your sister especially, are still hanging out and living your best lives.
I was with her 2 weeks ago at a weekend. We do sister weekends regularly.
Oh, Jay, don't you love, here's the
sister
thing, Kathy, I'm going to tell you this. We are, someone is turning 50 in August 5th. And so I have no clue what kind of big party we're going to have. And it is just around the corner, but I
Adele,
totally
if you would like to send tickets.
Oh my
Adele.
God. JJ wants to go to Adele, Kathy, and she's lost her mind.
I love Adele.
Yeah, so do I. $1,300, $1,500 tickets. Adele, girl,
these caregivers
are cheap. Yeah. These caregivers got to have got some money.
I don't need to go with anybody else. If she just give me the money, Natalie, I mean, just pay for my ticket. I don't need to go with you.
Yeah. Thank you. You know what? If you could just FaceTime us in, that would be great. Emily and I would be like, oh, sure, Jay, we're right there with you. Literally on FaceTime. Kathy, I am so sorry you had to experience
Sorry,
that,
Kathy.
but we are so happy you came to be with us today.
We are blessed
Thank
that you
you.
came today, Kathy.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. You girls
Oh.
are wonderful. Thank you for doing this, for spreading the word, and for
Oh.
helping all of those unpaid, unsupported caregivers out there.
Oh,
Thank
I
you.
love that. Kathy's just so wonderful. And so kind of as we're wrapping up, we'll make sure that you've got everybody has in the show notes Kathy's contact information, because you definitely want to follow her on social media. She does some really cool things around downsizing by design. And I love that because Kathy's experience as a realtor, and then she's been helping me because Lord knows I've got too much stuff. So you definitely want to follow her on social media.
Absolutely.
And Kathy, thanks so much. And everybody, thanks so much for listening in. We appreciate you more than you know. And until next Tuesday, when we confess again, have a great day. Bye.
Bye.